I would now like to invite Mr. Bobby Sager, an American businessman, philanthropist, photographer, and inspirational speaker, to deliver the keynote speech.
This is a conversation about the importance and the power of gratitude. So 3 years ago last night, I sat in my newly built home near Boston. I was there with my son Shane and my daughter Tess, and we looked around this house. It was late. It was 10, 11 o'clock in the evening, and I looked around and I said, "This house was a very difficult house to build. It's on a little island, so it was just a very it was difficult." Looked around and said, "Wow! After 6 years of building this house, there's nothing left to change. The house is finally done." Just 6 hours later, it burned to the ground with me trapped on the second floor. I came within a minute or so of dying in that fire. And it made me think a lot about how we take tomorrow for granted. When I put my head down on the pillow that night, I couldn't possibly have imagined that in a few short hours I would be fighting for my life. So taking tomorrow for granted robs us of the power of today. Too often we wake up, myself included, on Monday and wish it was Friday. And when we do that, we're wishing away something like 70% of our lives. So I'm writing a new book called More. It's a book about thankfulness, and in it I talk about a concept that I call Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday afternoon is meant to represent the everyday, the so-called ordinary, and the further observation that our extraordinary lives are made up almost entirely of ordinary days. Birthdays, New Year's Eve, those so-called big days, those are just the icing. The cake is all the ordinary days in between. So how do we make those days, thank you, how do we make those days more rich and more vivid? How do we wake up and say, "Thank God it's Monday"? "16 years ago, I decided that making more money wasn't going to make my life any better. I didn't want to buy more houses and things and so forth. And so I decided to stop working and to try to reapply the same skills that I used to make money to make a difference. My children at the time were 9 years old and 6 years old. My wife and I took them out of school and we said, "You know what, we're going to go into the world. We're going to see if we can find ways to help people, but we're not going to send a check. We're going to go there. We're going to live in the villages, in the refugee camps, wherever it is that we're trying to help, long enough so that we can really understand what's needed, not go into a place and just tell them what's good for them, and live close enough to the ground so that we can really listen." Because my experience over these many years of going around the world and seeing other people trying to be useful is that much too often people come into a situation, tell them what they're going to do for them, and then leave. The way that we do it is that we never give a handout. We only help people to help themselves. And there's a dignity to that that's really critical, because pure charity can cripple people. It doesn't make them feel good about themselves. It isn't really sustainable. So when we are in these places and we can look the people that we're trying to help in the eye and feel their humanity and let them feel ours and let them know that they're important enough for us to be there, that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of sustained impact, that's the kind of dignified impact that we seek to make. My photography is, I use it as a way to connect with people. There's just the photograph is almost a detail at the end of the interaction. These three kids are in Kabul, Afghanistan, and in this bombed, you can see the kind of distance and sadness and maybe even suspicion in their eyes. And just a second later, same kids, and the only difference between that top picture and the bottom picture is me going like this. Because in that bottom picture is filled with opportunity for friendship and connection. And all I did was make myself vulnerable. All I did was make that kind of human connection. Too often we're looking at someone as the other, as an object, instead of as a fellow human being. The next one. So here's another example, and I go, and this is what happens. The next one, please. This little girl in Afghanistan. So everybody help me this time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Next one. This is a man in Rwanda who I think he has a look in his eye like, you know, maybe he wants to beat me up. And just a second later, help me out. Human connection. It's so easy to do. And by the way, this second picture, this isn't the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story. This isn't just a matter of making a funny sound and, you know, and taking a picture. This is making that kind of connection so that we can have a conversation, so that I can listen to what he has to say, so that he can feel who I am and I can feel who he is. Next one. And ready? And next one. This is a Tibetan monk. I thought most Tibetan monks were supposed to look kind of happy. He doesn't look very happy. Ready? And I think the last one now. I love the way his eyes are going to light up. Ready? Help me out, everybody. 1, 2, 3. And I think the last one, maybe. Yes, this is the last one. Okay, last time. You aren't participating. Please. 1, 2, 3. There, you made him smile. And now you have the opportunity to make him your friend. This is a little boy named Moises. He's in Rwanda. He's a child soldier. A child soldier. He killed 5 people before he was 9 years old, fighting in the Congo. Next slide. This is his soccer ball, his football, made from whatever was lying around. This little boy, Moses, was the inspiration for this football. This football is indestructible. You can stab it with a knife, you can drive a truck over it. We've had elephants stepping on it and they couldn't break it. Remember I said before that we don't do handouts because it robs people of their dignity. So the only way that you can get one of these footballs is by entering into a program that uses football to teach life skills, to teach leadership or to teach about HIV or drugs or so many things that are important life lessons. And when I was distributing these balls to these child soldiers, friends of Moise's, I said, because this ball is indestructible, it will be in your life for a very long time. So think about the fact, now these are kids that are 10 years old, maybe 15 years old. Think about the fact that because this is indestructible, one day you can play football with your sons and daughters with this same ball. That you can start to imagine the possibilities, the light at the end of the tunnel, the power of hope. I'd ask you to think about this as we go through our busy lives. Think about what you got upset about today. The traffic, you had to wait in line to get food, or somebody, whatever it is. Think about what you got upset about today, and think about how it compares with her daily challenges. It's hard to be thankful without some kind of context to appreciate what you have. And I think that she provides really, really big context. People think about the world and that it's really, there's so many problems and it's so difficult, and you say, you know, what can I do? As one person, what can I do to make a difference? You know, how can I can't really kind of move the needle. I'd ask you to think about the idea, something that I write about in one of my books, of concrete baby steps. Concrete baby step is just the way it sounds. It's something that you do for someone else. Could be one-on-one, whatever it is, that makes a small difference. Because if I do my concrete baby steps and you do yours and you do yours and you do yours, it's when we add all those up cumulatively, that's how we make a difference in the world. But don't feel bad for these kids. They don't want our pity. I didn't show you their photos so that you'd say, oh, look at those poor kids, I want to give them a hug. Hopefully, you take strength from their strength. You feel more thankful in your own lives. And in return for that strength and that thankfulness, you go find ways to give other people hope. Not just by giving money, but by giving something of yourselves.